some people have what I call fear of cloud nine. Now, if we define cloud nine as that ecstatic state where I'm both in love with another person and I'm being loved by another person, that for a lot of people would be an amazing place to be. But what some people do from their own prior experience is that they're sitting on that cloud nine, they're looking down and going, that's a long way down, that's a long way to fall, that would hurt a lot if I fell that far. So what they do next is they break the relationship before it gets too intense, because what they fear is not getting to cloud nine, it's falling off, it's the loss. I know some people talk about fear of success. I've never met anybody who's scared of being successful. I've met plenty of people that fear the loss of the success once they've achieved it, and that is a completely different thing. So in a relationship sense, if you notice that someone is keeping emotional distance from you, then, and if that is a constant, so they never open up, they never talk about their feelings, you never feel connected to them, the chances are that relationship isn't going anywhere, and it's not about you, it is about them, because that is their unconsciously deployed strategy to keep themselves emotionally safe. The tragedy of the strategy is that that very desire for emotional safety will keep them from ever being loved and from loving another person. They will completely bypass that experience, that joy in their lives and the children and grandchildren that may result from it if they keep running that same fear-based strategy. And the other tragic part of it is that that's normally being played out completely unconsciously. So whilst the person might know that they've sabotaged the relationship, they really don't know why. And they haven't stopped to think about it. They just move on to the next one and think, oh, thank God, that's over. Meanwhile, the person that's been dumped is scratching their heads, wondering what they did wrong. Well, actually, it wasn't you. Yeah, if you're the one doing the dumping and you can't put your finger on exactly why you're doing it, you've got to look yourself in the mirror and ask yourself, are you deliberately sabotaging this relationship to keep your distance? And think about, for how long do you want to keep doing that in your life and actually not experience the joy? Because if you ask anybody who's experienced real love, what would you risk to get it again if you'd lost it? I think most people would say pretty much everything and anything to get back to that place. That's how powerful it can be once you've got it. Sometimes the imprints on people are powerful enough that they act out the strategies of either or both parents on the partner. So the partner doesn't understand why they're being treated in a particular way. Well, actually, it's not their fault. This is the behavior that the person learned as a child, and they're now literally role-playing their way through life. So you are not actually in a relationship with the person that you think you are. You're actually in a relationship with one of the parents. That's the behavior that you're in a relationship with. So it makes a great deal of sense to, before you get too involved with someone, is to start those conversations about behavior, about values, about childhood experiences, all the things that let you learn together and understand together about each other, what your drives and your motivations are, what are the things that have happened to you that have shaped you as an individual, what are the problems that you've had to overcome, what is all the shit that you're trying to cope with. Yeah. And when you can open up and discuss those things, suddenly you find that life is not so bad. And if you two are not judging each other and trying to find fault in each other to try and, one trying to bolster the other, life gets a lot more peaceful. Limelight's an interesting one where you could imagine, so King Charles, it was Prince Charles back then, and Diana, where Diana comes in as the outsider, completely steals the limelight. And if you were around back then, you'd understand why. Instead of being proud and basking in the reflected glory, we got the suspicion that actually Charles's nose was out of joint because he wasn't important anymore and he couldn't deal with it, right? And we all know what happened next. If you're in that kind of situation, you've got to ask yourself, are you able to enjoy the fact that your other half gets that kind of attention, or is this going to bug you for the rest of your life? Because if it is, that relationship ain't going anywhere. And if you're the one in the limelight, is it your ego that's pushing you to do that? And is it your partner being critical of you to try and rebalance? Again, that's dysfunctional. You need to be able to relax about what's going on. And if you can't relax, I doubt it's the right relationship. So sometimes I get people who have this incessant need to be right on everything. If you're in a relationship with that kind of person, you'll probably trace that back to a critical parent, and they never got the approval they wanted, and now they're applying that critical parent strategy to you in the vain hope that their critique of you makes them above you, and that will somehow make them feel better. But of course, it never does. And the strategy has to be repeated every day. So you'll view that relationship as a pain in the neck until you either break that person out of that strategy or you break the relationship. So the first step in that kind of situation is to raise the awareness of the behavior. Now, if the other person wants to remain in denial, and that is so often unfortunately the case, there really isn't anything you can do other than end the relationship. If it's you that's being the critical person, ask yourself, does it actually matter, this being right that you're so wedded to? What difference does it really make? Would you rather be right in your own mind and sacrifice the other person or even the relationship for being right? Or could you choose just to let it go and recognize it makes no damn difference at all? Where would you be in that scenario? And if it's you holding on to something, I'd say to you, well, it's maybe you that needs to let go. So the last couple of factors, there's what I call cultural overhang gets in the way of a lot of relationships. And that's why it comes back to the fact that dialogue at the beginning is so important. I think I can only speak for the Western culture because that's where I come from the UK. I think buying that time to not feel under pressure from the other party. So let's say girl and boy wants to have sex, girl's not sure. Well, when you have that dialogue and you start to understand each other, what you're also doing is buying time where you're trying to figure out, is this the right person? And obviously if it's the right guy, he should be trying to figure out exactly the same. And I think, as Jordan Peterson has said, the swinging 60s and free sex and all of this stuff, actually, I think that balloon's been well and truly popped. And the way we're designed as humans, we're way better suited, the vast majority of us, for, as one of my friends put it, more serial monogamy than we are to just be a free spirit flitting from here to there. I'll put it that way. So where I want to end is a question I was asked, and it's probably because of language difficulties. I used to work in Eastern Europe for a number of years. I really loved it over there, Slovakia, Czech Republic, Poland. And one of the things that amused me back then was that young women would ask me, how do I know that, and they'd be speaking in English, obviously I don't speak so good in their languages. How do I know that my relationship is the big love? And the funny thing first was that we don't have that expression in English. We don't call it that. But I think in a lot of European languages, they do. I think in English we'd say the love of my life. And I would say the biggest clue is that if you really have to ask, then the relationship that you currently have in its current form is not it. But I do acknowledge, I think there's like a surface level where people to get together, oh, boy meets girl, mutual attraction. But often there's an unconscious role that each plays for the other. You can sort of get a hint of this in the idea that opposites attract. So one might play the role of the peacock and the other one plays the role of the dove. It doesn't matter which gender. So one might be the life and soul of the party, one might be quieter, but each, one might be the rock, one might be the bright light. You've got these opposite attracts type dynamics going on. And those tend to be more under the surface. And so you've got attraction at the top and unconscious connection at the bottom. See if you can work out what is the unconscious role that my partner plays with me and vice versa. Because if you've got the attraction at the top and the connection at the bottom, chances are that's the partnership that's going to last.